And the game of the year is Baldur's Gate 3.
What the hell is a Baldur's Gate? So I may be a little late on this, but I've been seeing a bunch of stuff about the Game Awards and how nobody knows what a Baldur's Gate is. I've also been seeing stuff about people's personal favorite game of the year. Now it's my turn to not do that, because I want to do something else. Last year, as an adult, I finally decided to come out of my gaming shell and stop playing all my comfort games and only play games that I had never finished before. Yeah, that's right. This is my show, so we're talking about what I played this year. Specifically in a top 10 format, because it's easier to write transitions. Now, just to be clear, the game didn't have to come out in 2023 to be eligible for this list. Anything I played counts. And if you want to see almost everything I played, you can check me out on my backlog, link in the description. Hello, everybody. Now, before we get started with the top 10, we're going to have to introduce some honorable mentions. All right, let's roll the clips.
Bayonetta.
The first two games are some of my favorite games ever, but the third one kinda let me down. All the Bayonetta stuff is the best it's ever been and still really fun, but now there's a whole lot of non-Bayo stuff and it really drags the game down for me.
Resident Evil.
Realistically, this game would be like number 5 on the list because it was amazing, but I wanted to add some variety. I loved everything about this game and I think it's peak classic Resident Evil. Another great Mortal Kombat game, but I'm not a huge fan of the roster. Also, go watch our review of this game, links at the end of the video. I played this game as a kid and liked it a lot then, and coming back to it, it's still pretty good, but I've got a couple problems. The combat is really shallow and the overworld can be annoying to navigate sometimes, but other than that, it's still pretty fun. I really enjoyed this one. I even thought it was better than Breath of the Wild, but I generally enjoy classic 3D Zelda more. Good lord, those were some heavy hitters. Alright, enough. Let's stop fucking around and let's start getting into the list. Starting off with Skate 3! In my youth, I played lots of Tony Hawk and loved those games. Eventually, my occasional co-host took a great interest in skateboarding, leading us to making a video about Skate 3 that you should totally watch. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. It's really fun just skating around and doing tricks. The game's progression allows you to take on the challenges in mostly whatever order you want, allowing you to dictate the pacing of the game. While it's certainly no Tony Hawk, Skate 3 is still a really fun time in its own right. I actually played the DS version of this game first, and while that is more like a Metroid game than anything else, also one of my favorite games of all time, this is more like a standard action game starring Spider-Man. You play as 4 different Spider-Men, those being Amazing, Ultimate, Noir, and 2099, all putting a unique spin on the base gameplay. My favorites are Ultimate and Noir, because I think Ultimate has the best Spider-Man and level themes, and Noir has really fun stealth levels. I really like the art style and writing particularly. Every Spider-Man has a voice actor who's played the character previously, those being Neil Patrick Harris, Josh Keaton, Christopher Daniel Barnes, and Dan Gilvezan, and they give great performances and add tons of humor.
I believe the technical term is stickum powers.
Yep, they're called stickum powers. Did one of the other me's make that joke already?
Yes, and it was no funnier then.
Yeesh.
This is the DS version, by the way, and mostly about the story mode. Nothing about this game is really groundbreaking or anything like that, but I found this game really charming. It's like an RPG style with minigames and puzzles, and you collect characters to your party and all that. I know these games are about the sports or whatever, and most of them are fun. I just like the neat references and abilities to both the Mario and Sonic franchise. I just really enjoyed the story mode. God of War was one of the new franchises I started last year. I played 1, 2, 3, and this one. This spot was really close between 3 and 2018, but in the end I decided 2018 because God of War 3 had more moments where I wanted to stop playing. This game was really solid overall. I wasn't loving it at first, but after a while I picked up on it. The combat is similar to the other games, but more grounded, and I think I like it more. I love Kratos' new axe. You can throw it and call it back like Thor's hammer, and it's my favorite mechanic in the whole game. I love being in the middle of combat or something without it and I call it from far away and it feels super cool. The story was also a highlight. It, along with Ragnarok, is one of my favorite video game stories ever. All the characters feel real, like they have emotions and goals, and they all develop as the game progresses. My only real problem is the new gear system. It's like an RPG with stats and numbers and all that, and I just didn't care or didn't want to deal with any of it. Metroid was another series I started last year, and this one was my favorite. I played all of them except for Other M, Dread, and the Prime games. I've always liked the so-called Metroidvania genre, and this game is an excellent example of how to do one. It's very open-ended, but also gives you a basic nudge in the right direction if you need it. The controls are tight and responsive. The atmosphere is great, along with the graphics and music. I love the feeling of progression and getting stronger as you play, so you get tons of upgrades and abilities to keep you going. Also, this game is a remake of the first game, and if we compare it to that, it completely blows it out of the water.
Alright, simmer down, simmer down. We're about to crack the top 5, but before that, we're going to take a quick commercial break, so we'll be back right after these messages.
I'm back!
And we're back! Yeah. Alright, now that we're in the top 5, all of these games must be universally loved, right?
Last year I picked up a GameCube for the first time, and this opened the possibility for many games that I didn't have access to previously, and Sonic Adventure was the first one I tried, and surprisingly, I loved it. I've heard mixed opinions about this game, the main complaints being the hub worlds, presentation, and the last 3 playable characters. Big the cat. I will admit, I had moments where I got lost in the large, confusing hub worlds, and the cutscenes and voice acting are all pretty bad, but the gameplay is where it really shines. For Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, they translated their gameplay to 3D almost perfectly the first time. Everybody is fast and has their unique abilities, but the control is solid too. I can go fast and still feel like I'm controlling them well enough for platforming to be possible, unlike the newer Sonic games where he's so hard to control it's impossible to do platforming. I also really love the soundtrack. Every song fits the stage perfectly. Overall, this isn't my favorite Sonic game, but it's still pretty amazing and hilarious.
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
I loved Sony's Marvel's Insomniac Spider-Man on PlayStation 4, and its sequel, Sony's Marvel's Insomniac Spider-Man 1.5. So you better believe I was hyped for Spider-Man 2, and for the most part, it met my expectations. It had all the things I liked from the first games and more. You can play as both Peter and Miles, they've streamlined the gadgets and abilities, they've added more movement options, and it's all capped off with a compelling new story. I don't think that the story is as good as the first games, because it feels a little rushed, but it's still pretty good. This is also one of the first games where I've noticed the power of the PlayStation 5. There's no load times for anything, and the game looks amazing and runs at a consistent frame rate through the entire playthrough. My only problem with the game at the moment is that it's full of glitches and bugs. I encountered at least 3 just recording half an hour for this footage, and I encountered a ton more in my first playthrough.
It's okay, they're gone.
I owe you.
Any more traffic violations and we're gonna have to revoke your license.
Anyone who knows me knows that I love wrestling, so therefore I play all the games. I started playing with 2K18 on Switch, and that was an experience to say the least. And I've played every single one since. I've probably got at least 2,000 hours in all of these games combined. I'm a huge customization guy, so I'll spend hours messing with the stats and movesets and attires and all that. I've given up on playing these games just to win matches. Now I get the most fun out of trying to put on good, entertaining matches. I'll switch wrestlers in the middle of matches to make sure that both guys are getting offense in, and I'll make the opponents kick out at certain times and all that to make it the most entertaining match possible. So, what do I like about this game specifically? More than anything, this game nails the presentation. It looks the most like actual wrestling TV more than any game before. This game has the best graphics and least amount of glitches, so I can play the best looking matches possible. Although it does have its problems. For one, I don't really care about any of the other modes like Showcased or GM mode. Another thing is I don't like the gameplay as much as the older 2K games like 19. I feel like having to grapple someone before you can do a move ruins some of the cool sequences you can do. Resident Evil was my favorite new franchise I started in 2023. I've enjoyed every game I've played in the series so far. Now when I heard things about the original RE4, that it was one of the greatest games ever made, I tried it years ago and didn't really like it. Playing this game now, I can definitely see this being considered one of the greatest games of all time. This has everything that makes a video game good. Really fun and fluid gameplay, an intuitive shop and inventory system, an engaging story, and tons of replayability. I really can't praise this game's gameplay enough. The gunplay feels so nice, and combined with the melee attacks, this game is just so fun to play. This game is basically perfect in my eyes. The only reason it's not number 1 is because there's one game that I think is even better.
Alright gamers, you've waited long enough. We've had some good games, we've had some great games, but only one can be the Game of the Year for 2023. And without further ado, the official No Checkpoint Game of the Year for 2023 is...
I loved everything about this game. This was the first time in years that I was so excited to play that I was thinking about the game all day. I would get up early before work to play it, and I would stay up late after work to play it. So why did I enjoy it so much? I'd give this game all the same praises I gave RE4, just in a different way. Every gunshot feels heavy and important. You've got a limited inventory, so you have to constantly manage it, keeping you engaged and afraid the entire time. I love the characters. Leon has become one of my favorite video game protagonists ever, and Claire is no slouch either. They both have engaging stories that keep you playing, and since this is a short game, being beatable in 3 to 6 hours, you'll never get bored. I wouldn't consider myself a huge survival horror fan, but this game got me hooked in all the right ways. After only playing through each campaign twice, I can easily consider this one of my favorite games of all time, and also making this my favorite game that I played last year.
Oh yeah. Game of the year, Resident Evil 2 Remake. Think we've had a pretty good year overall? Well, I think it's time to bring the award show to a close. I hope all of you have a good night. And
Wait a minute. Who are you? Get off the
shit.
stage!
Oh shit.